This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Again, this is Regina Feeney, librarian, archivist, and public historian at the Freeport Memorial Library. And I'm going to continue with part 2 of Don't Know Much About Freeport. Okay, so let's talk about early transportation. So trains, planes, and automobiles. Early on, the only way really to get in and out of Freeport if you didn't have your own horse was a stagecoach. And there was a stagecoach that came to Freeport 3 times a week that would take you to Hempstead. And from Hempstead, you could then pick up another stagecoach to go to Brooklyn and points beyond. A lot of people don't realize that Freeport had an airport. It was a 70-acre flying field located at the south end of South Grove Street, which is now Guy Lombardo Avenue. The airport was dedicated on September 30th, 1928. And Freeporters Daniel De Silva and Frank Willits backed the airport project. Aviator and actor Tom Smith served as the airport's manager and was the first pilot to land his plane at the airport a week before the dedication. Smith's daughter Eleanor was the first to land a plane here on the day of the dedication. It was reported that 1,000 attended that Sunday dedication. The airport was described as having 2 runways between 1,500 and 2,500 feet in length and a barn-like hangar. There's also belief that at the Lights Club that there was these open fields there and that some of the actors also landed their plane there. And there's also some anecdotal evidence that some people were landing planes in the area what is now Industrial Park. But this was Freeport's official airport. Augustus Herring was almost first in flight. He was an American aviator, pioneer, and he was involved in glider experiments. He built and flew gliders of his own design, and Herring also briefly worked with Samuel Langley, who was the principal competitor to the Wright brothers. In 1909, Herring created the Herring Curtis Company with Glenn Curtis, and he was married to Freeport-born Lilia Mellon, and they lived on South Main Street. Their son, Bill Herring, was a star baseball player in Freeport. And in 1915, he briefly pitched for the Brooklyn Tip Tops, which was part of the Federal League. Okay, let's talk about the railroad. So Freeport does not get railroad access until after the Civil War. So the first railroad that comes to Freeport is in 1867. And it was for this part of the South Side Railroad. That was the first railroad company that came through. In 1925, the first electric train comes to Freeport. And in the picture here, you'll see a 1954 picture of the original Freeport train station, which was one of the original train stations for Long Island. And that was there for many years until about 1959, when the railroad tracks were elevated and opened. Freeport also had a trolley line. And in 1901, Mineola Hempstead and the Freeport Trolley Company gained the first franchise to operate a street surface railroad from Mineola to Freeport. In 1902, Freeport welcomed the first trolley from Jamaica by way of Mineola. Though it popular for a time, Freeporters grew to dislike the noise, and automobile owners found the trolleys to be a distraction. By 1926, most of the trolley lines were gone, and the tracks were used for scrap metal during the war. Now, on the map to the right, you're going to see a dot, and that shows some of the trolley lines. And if you notice, one trolley line actually goes through the backyards of properties. And I'm told that when people were doing work on their backyards, maybe putting in-ground pools, they did find remnants of this old trolley line. Freeport, the first report of any automobile in Freeport is 1900. And we believe that was owned by G. Bennett Smith, who purchased his automobile for $750, which was a lot of money back then. This car was described as being a 2-cylinder steam engine with 4.5 horsepower and went a whopping 6 miles per hour. Freeport also has a place in aerospace, and this is sort of a little known history. But in 1954, the Polytechnic Institute of Brooklyn opened the Aerodynamics Laboratory at 527 Atlantic Avenue, right near where the bridge is into Baldwin. This facility had 2 supersonic wind tunnels capable of creating wind speeds 10 times the speeds of sound and capable of simulating stratospheric conditions 28 miles above the Earth. The work done here played an important role in the development of ballistic missiles for the military and re-entry vehicles for NASA. The laboratory was headed by Antonio Ferrari, a pioneer in supersonic testing. Most people became aware of this facility in 1955 when there was an explosion at the laboratory. And this explosion sent thousands of burning aluminum oxide pellets into the air, causing $2,000 in damage, but mostly to parked cars and more boats. Another contributor to space science is Dr. Arthur F. Davidson. He was a Johns Hopkins astrophysicist who helped define density and composition of intergalactic space. Davidson was born in Freeport to Norwegian immigrants. His father was a commercial fisherman, and he graduated Freeport High School in 1962. He attended Princeton University and served in the Navy during the Vietnam War. He went on to work on the Hubble telescope. Another person very important to space travel and understanding is a little known Freeporter whose name is Kathy Ross. And at the age of 21, she was chosen to volunteer to test Fairchild Republic's first unisex toilet in a zero gravity chamber for a prototype for NASA. And you ask, well, how do you test a zero gravity unisex toilet? Well, basically, they put you on a Boeing 707. They take you over the Gulf of Mexico, and that plane turns into the world's largest roller coaster. And on some of these drops, you get the sensation of being in zero gravity. And she was tested this unisex toilet in 1973. So what's in a name? So there's a lot of names on buildings and streets in Freeport. So who are those people? Well, let's start with John W. Dodd, who is the namesake of our middle school. Dodd was born in 1925. He was actually superintendent of schools from 1925 to 1961. He was born in Pennsylvania, and he graduated Columbia University in 1920. He received a PhD from NYU, and in 1917, he served as principal of the Columbus Avenue School. In 1923, he became principal of Freeport High School and became superintendent of schools back in 1925. Under his watch, Freeport organized its first marching band, brought the National Honor Society to Freeport, and created a publication about the Freeport schools that got mailed to all Freeport residents. Also under his tenure, Cleveland Avenue School was built, and this was the first elementary school in Nassau County to have a school library. He retired in 1961 and became a professor at LIU. Sadly, Dr. Dodd died of a heart attack in 1973. Here's Carolyn G. Atkinson, and the G stands for Genevieve. She was born in Jefferson, New Hampshire in 1866. She graduated from the Albany Normal School, now the University at Albany, SUNY. She began her teaching career on August 30th, 1885, in a 4-room schoolhouse on Pine Street and South Grove Street, which is now Lombardo Avenue. She became one of 4 teachers in the school with less than 200 students. After 52 years of service, Miss Atkinson retired in 1937. She was a member of the First Baptist Church, where she was elected to be an honorary deaconess. It is said that she knew the Bible almost by heart, and she spent much of her time visiting the sick and reading to children. Miss Atkinson died at the age of 82 of a heart attack and in 1949, and is buried in Greenfield Cemetery. That same year, the Freeport School Board unanimously approved the naming of the school on Seaman Avenue, the Carolyn G. Atkinson School, in her honor. And over the years, I have met some Freeporters that remember her and had her as a teacher. and I have yet to find anyone that had an unkind word to say about her. She was supposedly just a lovely, lovely person. Leo F. Giblyn was a member of the Freeport School Board of Education from 1932 to 1960. He became president of the board in 1940 and remained in that role for the rest of his tenure. He was born in Watertown, New York, and he was the ninth child in a family of 10. In 1911, he enlisted in Company M of the 71st Infantry. During World War I, he commanded the 105th Infantry in Belgium and was on the Hindenburg Line in France. He was wounded in action in 1918 in France and later recuperated, receiving the Purple Heart and the Conspicuous Service Cross. In 1929, Giblyn was appointed chairman of the Northeast Civic School Committee in Freeport. He was elected to the board in 1934 and became its board president later. And during his tenure, the number of children attending the school in Freeport nearly tripled. Other things that were built were the new Freeport High School, the Cleveland Avenue School, Carolyn G. Atkinson School, Bayview Avenue School, and the Athletic Field House and the first Cleveland Avenue School were all constructed while he was president of the board. In celebration of his 25th anniversary in 1957, for being on the school board, a testimonial dinner was held in his honor at Guy Lombardo's East Point House. And he was presented with a Buick sedan, lifetime membership in the Freeport Teachers Association, and an airplane trophy from the Grumman Corporation. Giblyn was a member of the American Legion and a very active member of Our Holy Redeemer Church. And in 1962, Leo F. Giblyn School was dedicated in his honor, and he lived at 121 Washburn Avenue. Okay, so what do these signs have in common? Just think about that for a minute. Well, for one thing, they're spelt wrong. Sweezy Avenue was named for Sidney Sweezy, who served as village council and police judge. Sweezy also served as president or mayor of the village from 1917 to 1918. Graffing Place was named for the Dietrich Graffing family, who lived in Freeport before the 1900s. Graffing Place from East Lincoln Place to Lillian Avenue later became Pershing Place in 1926. Here's an interesting question. Where is the dividing line? So where does North Freeport begin and South Freeport end? Is it Sunrise Highway or the Long Island Railroad tracks? Well, after 1906, the dividing line between North and South Freeport became the Long Island Railroad tracks. Before 1906, the dividing line was Fulton Street, which later became Merrick Road. Remember, Sunrise Highway doesn't come into being until the late 1920s. The tracks had been there since 1867. Okay, east versus west, Guy Lombardo, Main Street, or Henry Street. Okay, so actually, it's going to be after 1906, Main Street. Before 1906, the dividing line was Ocean Avenue. Okay, so where in the world? Have you ever heard of Martin Park? Where is it? Martin Park is the name of the triangle-shaped park located in the intersection of East Avenue and Guy Lombardo Avenue, just south of Smith Street. The official name of the park is the William J. Martin Sr. Memorial Park. It was originally named Grove East Park, but the park was renamed on October 25th, 1964, in honor of William J. Martin, a local businessman and civic leader. The park's flagpole was donated by Ann Martin, William J. Martin's widow. In 2005, the World War I trench mortar gun was relocated from its Brooklyn Avenue location to Martin Park. And for some Freeporters of a certain age, you remember this is the place where you took your driver's test for your license. Gatter Park. Where is that? Well, Gatter Park is the triangle-shaped piece of land at the intersection of Miller Avenue and Smith Streets. The owners of this property were village trustee William Gatter and his brother Irving. In 1925, it was purchased by the village for $10. Turks Island? Well, probably know it today as Industrial Park, but the origin of this name is a bit of a mystery. One theory was that the name was derived from Zophar Smith's turkey farm that was located here, but there isn't that much evidence to point to that. However, one of the first newspaper accounts that refers to this area as Turks Island appears in 1908. You can see it here. And it always has this connotation of being this very, very tough neighborhood. And if you look up the word Turk in the Oxford English Dictionary, Turk was once used to describe someone that was considered a barbarian or a savage, a bad-tempered or unmanageable man. It was also once used to describe an Irish immigrant to the United States. So this notion that this was a tough neighborhood, it was Turks Island. In 1916, the section became known as Shell Island, and former Mayor James Hance began redevelopment of this area. In 1926, this area was referred to as Ormond Park, but that didn't last very long, and most people still always refer to it as Turks Island. And after 1964, this section of Freeport became known as Industrial Park. Okay, true colors. I don't know, since a lot of people here have been home down during this pandemic, you've probably been going out and doing some walking. And I don't know if you've noticed that in Freeport, our fire hydrants are different colors. And what does this mean, right? Well, according to my friends in the fire department, the different colors tell the firemen what kind of attachments they're going to need to hook up their hoses to a fire hydrant. So the green is supposedly a large water pipe underneath it, and it has one attachment. The orange is a medium-sized pipe underneath and has a different attachment. And the red pipe, the red topped fire hydrant, is a smaller pipe with a different attachment. Now, if you're walking in North Freeport and suddenly you see a blue fire hydrant, you have now left Freeport and are now in Roosevelt. This is a question I get a lot. Why aren't all Freeporters in the Freeport schools? So why aren't all Freeporters Red Devils? So if you live in Stearns Park, you're going to be in the Baldwin School District. If you are in North Freeport, you could be in the Roosevelt School District. Well, that is because the schools actually predate Freeport. So the Long Island starts establishing school districts about 1812, and we know sometime between 1812 and 1920, when the Freeport School is built, that other Freeport School District is established. So School District number 9, and you can see here that that is way before Freeport even becomes Freeport, before it's incorporated. And you'll also notice that over time, Freeport starts to gain property. So the original footprint of Freeport actually expands in all directions. So the reason why all Freeporters are not Red Devils, it's because the district lines haven't changed, but the boundaries of Freeport have. Okay, let's talk about some musical shout outs. So this is the Holmes Brothers album. It's a 1992 album called In the Spirit. And the Holmes Brothers were a vocal and instrumental trio originally from Christchurch, Virginia. And they're known for mixing the sounds of blues, soul, gospel, country with rhythm and blues. And they released 10 studio albums in their career. And in the liner notes of this particular album, they give a shout out to the Celebrity Club in Freeport that was known for doing live performances. Here we see the Stray Cats. And this is their album, Rant and Rave. And on one of the band members, he has a jacket over his shoulders, and it says Rod Snappers Freeport. Well, Rod Snappers was a car club in Freeport, and it was basically an economies of scale adventure. So you got to join this club, and you got access to their garage with all their equipment on Church Street. And you could share this equipment, so you didn't have to go out and buy your own stuff. And this jacket and these pictures are courtesy of one of the former members, Paul Everest. Here's Lou Reed. Lou Reed was born in 1942 in Brooklyn, and he grew up in Freeport at 35 Oakfield Avenue. He graduated from Freeport High School in 1959. During those years, he played in a number of bands and made his first recording as a member of a doo-wop group called the Shades. He graduated from Syracuse University with a BA, and in 1964, he expanded his interest to free jazz and other experimental types of music. He moved to New York City and took a job as a songwriter for Pickwick Records. After playing with a few groups, he formed the Velvet Underground in 1965. His solo career began in 1971. He became a widely respected member of the music industry and was inducted in 1996 into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 2010, Reed was inducted into the Long Island Songwriters Hall of Fame. And if you come to visit the Freeport Historical Society, we actually have his 1959 yearbook, which he signed. And an interesting to note about the copy of the record that we have here, if you notice, the name of his music label is Oakfield Avenue Music Limited. So he named his music company after the street he grew up in. Okay, Freeport Kids versus the Freeport Club. In 1942, the Village of Freeport raised over $700,000 for our troops through a war bond drive. The money was used to finance the construction of a B-29 Superfortress, which was later christened the Spirit of Freeport. The Spirit of Freeport achieved an enviable record of accomplishments during World War II and later supported the 22nd Bomb Wing during the Korean War. The 60-member crew called themselves Freeport Kids, even though they came from 11 different states and the UK. On Veterans Day 1950, the Spirit of Freeport and her crew landed at Mitchell Field for a 4-day reception on Long Island. The crew was driven to Freeport for a parade and tour. During the ceremony at Municipal Stadium, each crew member was given a $100 war bond and presented with a certificate of adoption, making the crewmen honorary citizens of the village. In return, the crew presented Mayor Robert L. Doxey with a miniature of the Spirit of Freeport. And a luncheon for these servicemen was served at Guy Lombardo's East Point house. And here you see at the bottom right is a picture from the publication, The Freeporter. And you'll see that in addition to the Freeport Kids, you have Bob Hope and Marilyn Maxwell, a famous actress. The Freeport Club is actually a group of people that were who spent time at the Freeport Hospital. In 1972, the Freeport Hospital became a pioneer in the modern treatment of alcoholism, and it was the only such treatment hospital in New York State. The initiative was started by Dr. Frank Herzlin, who persuaded the hospital board of trustees to allow him to use 4 beds to treat alcoholics. The Freeport Hospital had an international reputation, and between 1974 and 1981, 500 Icelanders were treated for alcoholism at the Freeport Hospital. In 1986, Dr. Herzlin was awarded an Icelandic knighthood, and the Freeport Club was an organization of Icelanders who had sought treatment at the Freeport Hospital, and that is a copy, a screenshot of their webpage. There was also another Freeport Club, an actually earlier one. It was a men's organization, and in 1903, this clubhouse was built on Grove Street, now Guy Lombardo Avenue, just south of Sunrise Highway. It was founded as a temperance club, which meant no alcohol. But in 1911, some of the members hoped to change these rules. 140 votes were cast, 78 in favor of alcohol and 52 against, but 87 votes were needed to amend the club's bylaws. So the club remained a temperance club, but many of the members left to join other organizations in Freeport that did serve alcohol. And in 1921, the club became the Masonic Lodge. Okay, let's talk about Freeport's motto. In 1962, the Village of Freeport adopted the motto, Freeport Boating and Fishing Capital of the East. That was on its letterhead. And in 2015, this a new fountain was erected on the entrances of Freeport with the motto. But Freeport was also known as the gateway to Jones Beach. and this is just this is something that would be affixed to cars, and it says Freeport Gateway to Jones Beach. Just so you know, Jones Beach opened in 1929, and the Meadowbrook Parkway was completed about 1935. Freeport was also known as the heart of the Sunrise Trail. The village seal was designed by local artist Lewis F. Fleming and adopted in 1928 during the Clinton and Flint administration. The seal includes the word Freeport, Nassau County, New York, the heart of the Sunrise Trail, incorporated in 1892. Freeport's location on Long Island is indicated by a star, and an airplane flies above Long Island, while in the east there is the rising sun. To the left is the Statue of Liberty, and to the right is a large ship with sails. Village historian Clinton Metz claimed in his book Freeport as It Was that Freeport was the first village seal adopted on Long Island. And the picture to the right is from a 1942 yearbook photo. Okay, so as we conclude this presentation, there are a lot of urban legends in Freeport that I have spent numerous amounts of time trying to refute. But once and for all, okay, Mae West never lived in Freeport. And we have I've read her biography, her autobiography. She never heard of Freeport. And there is some confusion because there is a house in Freeport that was owned by someone named Edna West. And there is some evidence to believe that she might have been in the theater industry, but no relation at all to the famous actress. So in conclusion, for those of you who want to pursue more information about the Village of Freeport, we have digitized our newspapers. We have our newspapers going back to 1895 to almost current. And there are other participants in this digitization project whose newspapers go back even further that do cover Freeport. So it's a really great resource. We also have our photographs online. We've also digitized all of our high school yearbooks. So you will find yearbooks from the 1927 up to 1970 online. If you come to the library or to the Freeport Historical Society, we do have the rest of them available for viewing. I've also been working on a Freeport history encyclopedia, so I'm constantly updating, adding new entries, and I've also created a local history resource page. So there's information there about timelines for the Village of Freeport, links to other digitized newspapers out there, information on how to research your house, and various other aspects of interesting facts about Freeport. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and keep coming back because we're going to keep doing more. Thank you so much.